Okay, so it's 4 p.m. Let's just kick it off. So thank you everyone for joining. Today we are having another interesting conversation about a topic that everyone wants to know more about. And we're having some industry experts with us that are going to share a lot of information and a lot of useful information today. So we have Michael Kleiner from Atomize. Hi, Michael, how are you?
Hi. Hi, my name is Marco Kleiner, and I'm the Global Vice President of Sales for Atomize. Atomize is one of the global market leaders in revenue management. We are assisting more than 700 customers around the globe to optimize their revenues with the help of modern machine and learning and pricing algorithms. I'm almost 4 years with Atomize now, and before that I held various positions in revenue management for the last 25 years for international brands in Europe, but also in the Middle East.
Great, Marco, thank you for being with us today. And then next, we also have Michael Edinger from SiteMinder. Hi, Michael, how are you?
Hi, Joanna. Thanks for having me today. My name's Michael for everybody. I'm the Market Development Manager for SiteMinder. SiteMinder Distribution. Basically, we're a global platform, commerce platform, looking to future-proof your technology stack by offering best-in-class distribution and channel management, direct booking engine, insights tools, and connectivity to all the important platforms such as our favorite partners, Atomize and BookBoost here on the call today, and Apaleo PMS. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Michael, for joining. We also have Jorge Rocha from OTA Insight. Hi, Jorge. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Joanna. So my name is Jorge Rocha. I work for OTA Insight as a business development manager. For the ones that don't know OTA Insight, we're a cloud-based intelligence platform, and pretty much, I would say, our purpose, our mission is to empower hoteliers with smarter revenue, marketing, and distribution solutions. At the moment, we have over 60,000 customers worldwide and present in around 190 countries. So pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And then we have Florian Montag from Apaleo as well. Hi, Florian.
Hello, Joanna. Thanks a lot. Great to be here. My name is Florian. I'm VP of Business Development at Apaleo. Apaleo is an open hospitality platform, so we're in the property management system category. However, we really think property management differently, so really focusing on a lean PMS functionalities and enabling the best connectivity for third-party solutions to connect to our PMS so that hotels, serviced apartments, and any kind of hospitality concepts can really build the best of breed tech stacks based on their needs and being able to create unique guest and staff experiences.
Amazing. Thank you, Florian. And last but not least, our very own Dan de Bruggen from BookBoost. Hi, Dan.
Hey, thanks, Johanna. So nice to meet you all, and great that you're taking the time out to join the webinar. So my name is Dan. I'm co-founder at BookBoost. For those who do not know BookBoost, BookBoost is a customer experience platform and includes CRM, unified inbox, and guest app. So everything guest journey, marketing, customer service related is what we help our customers with. We have customers in more than 30 countries today, and I'm very happy to be here as well and discuss with our partners and hopefully add value and try to provide some input during the call.
Definitely. Okay, well, thank you all our participants, and I'm going to be the moderator today. So hi, everyone. I'm Joanna. I'm the marketing manager at BookBoost, and I'm just going to be orienting a bit the conversation so we can all benefit from these questions that we're going to talk today. So the main topic today is how can new booking behaviors benefit or harm hotels? So trends are everywhere. We know that everything is changing, and the way people book accommodations is also changing. So the idea today is to discuss what are some of those trends and what hotels can do to take advantage of them or just not get hurt by them. Okay, so we're just going to kick it off with the first question. And this one is related to what we need to consider regarding inflation. We know that prices have been rising, the cost has been rising, and this has impacted travel plans before. So approximately 36% of travelers say that they might cancel their planned vacations due to budget concerns. So taking this into account, Marco, can you tell us a bit about what can hoteliers do regarding pricing to win over and not lose travelers without compromising their own budget?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Johanna, for mentioning this. Well, let me put it like this. Budget worries have basically always existed. The pandemic has certainly left its marks, and customers who have already booked on a price-oriented basis have become many times more cost-conscious. Customers, both for business and pleasure, have always traveled and will continue to do so, even stronger than before the pandemic. At least that's what the data from our customers in Europe, the Middle East, and North America shows me. We believe this is due to our focus on dynamic real-time pricing, which means that we identify as many revenue opportunities as possible from historical booking behaviors, existing demand, and forward-looking market data to analyze and then optimize peak demands. Of course, it also depends on the respective booking segments and its clientele. But even more important is the question of how can we prevent the ADR from suffering? There are segments which we cannot optimize for modern systems, since the decision of what the customer is willing to pay does not depend on the RMS. Or can you tell Siemens what to pay? Certainly, this will spark discussions. But not to get into too much detail, the only option for a hotel is not to immediately react to every trend, every possible promotion, every price bump of the competition. You will certainly not be able to meet every customer's request in terms of price, nor should you. But do everything you can to position yourself correctly in terms of price in advance. The only possibility is to use modern technology. A modern RMS system can react to changes in demand 730 days in advance and starts optimizing 2 years before the customer arrives and in real time. Recent statistics have just shown that 95% of revenue managers wish they had more time to do their actual job, just the ones they were hired for, thinking and acting strategically. Over 90% of revenue managers state that they wish to spend their time more effectively to be able to better optimize future demand periods. And more than 90% state that they must concentrate far too much on other things, such as evaluating reports, being involved in reservation processes, filling out Excel documents. Couldn't this time be better spent? I mean, doesn't every revenue manager like to have the answer ready when the GM asked about strategy for Q1 2024 because he has a meeting with the owner tomorrow? What I'm saying is that there is a lack of time, resources, and knowledge. And that gap became even larger during the pandemic, since many revenue managers left their position and took the knowledge with them. The only way to counteract this is to use an RMS that is easy and understandable to use for everyone, conducts price evaluations, updates in real time, recognizes the need for optimization, and helps the hotel to be more successful, to be well equipped to meet the current challenges.
Great, thank you, Marco. And yes, so we see that basically technology is one way that they can stay ahead of it, right? So then they don't need to react like, okay, this happened, and then like 1 minute later, we need to change something, because then they just don't have enough time to do their actual job. So that's a very interesting point. Okay, then let's continue. Then another side that we have also seen is that guests nowadays are looking for a certain level of personalization, and unique experiences, so to speak. So this puts some pressure on hoteliers. How can hoteliers leverage data to adapt to this increase in demand from the booking moment to the end of the stay? Dan, can you tell us a bit about this?
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually happy to go into that, and I think it's a very interesting topic and question that you're asking, Johanna, as lots has changed really, and we see that as well from our data, but also looking at trends into what consumers expect today and how you can turn that into your advantage. And I mean, I think that to try and get to that, that like we all want to feel special today, especially perhaps millennials and Gen Z, but counts for anyone really. And we value experiences over products. But that also means that those experiences better are creating real experience and are creating memories for us. And also when we look at like purpose and intent of trips, today it's much more blended than before. So for example, combining business and leisure or co-working trips and such, these are all like relatively new concepts that are changing the way we book, changing the expectations we have and such. And that also means that these expectations or the set of expectations, the variety of that gets broader, right? Because when I have different intent for traveling and such, and when you can understand that digitally, you can really use it to your advantage. And that's the key actually, because by gathering data, you could do that. If you can find out what someone's intent is for a trip, and you can use that in your advantage, you can be much more on point and create an experience that's in line with what I expect. So, and yeah, with data, that's really the keyword there, because if you collect that data and use digital on top of that, you can do that at scale or for each customer, let's say, and yeah, create that, yeah, use that in your advantage. So yeah, customer data, customer data, customer data. We hear it so much, but it is really true. Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting point, because then, yeah, we talk about personalization. Yes, of course. But then how can you personalize to like every single person, right? And then on the other side, when you have the data, then you can actually create groups and identify these patterns or these common things that people share. And then you can put together messages that actually go to these different groups instead of having to, okay, one by one or the same message to everyone that, yeah, you're just not gonna like it, basically.
No, totally. And it actually makes me think of a customer conversation I had earlier today. Like, and we were discussing their customer journeys, and they've now actually created a segment which is leisure. So they call it leisure, so business leisure, and have a customer journey for, they figure that out. They ask for intent pre-stay. And when a guest belongs to that segment, they know that certain touch points do not make sense and certain touch points do make sense. And they've seen some, like from doing their research, they've seen some interesting pointers to try and utilize it. So they're now going to test that and then see how that resonates, because each touch point should add value for the customer. You should always think about what's in it for them, right? And that's the starting point. But again, that relates to understanding that digitally, and their customer data is really how you could accomplish that, let's say. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes, definitely. So many things you can do when you understand your data. Okay,
yeah,
and then
off of the back of that, I'd like to touch in, Dan, that's a perfect example of using data in order to drive real results. And, you know, so many customers that I've spoken with who are always asking for system recommendations and things like that. What can we connect to the platform to do some intuitive guest messaging? Usually that question comes out of the frustration from customers where they were just sending out through their marketing team blanket emails, blanket specials and things like that, corporate rates and things like that out to family and leisure travelers. And it was ended up being a lot of frustration around spam emails, and it was really ruining that guest rapport that they may have built, you know, when the guests stayed with them. So 100% using the data with intuitive systems that are actually targeting the verticals that you want to penetrate with the right specials in order to really drive those results. So really glad to hear about that.
amazing. Thank you, Michael. And just a reminder for everyone, if you want to get some examples, or if you have some questions after hearing any of the answers from our panelists, please just write in the Q&A section so we can answer them live as well. So if we continue, then let's go to another question. Now, another trend that we see is that travelers are doing more online research than ever before. So the average traveler looks at 5.5 websites during their booking process and spends more time looking at the hotel than at the flights. So how can hotels get the attention of the customer or make sure they stay on their mind during this research phase? Jorge, can you tell us a bit about this?
Yeah, certainly. I think what Dan and Michael just said is a really nice segue for this topic, right? The usual suspect, data. When we think about it, data is the new oil, right? Data is the power to move people's minds, people's decisions, and if you're able to have a tactical approach to that, you definitely can get in front of mind of the customers. I think in our daily basis, when we look for something, or if we're looking for pillows or for hotels or for cars, then we start getting geo-targeted by that in, for example, our social media. So over here is exactly the same thing as hotels. So for example, bringing back to my hospitality time, and I used to work for example, Waldorf Astoria, and we used to do kind of lobby ambassador. So we would ask the people, where are you coming from? Like, where were you thinking to going? Like, which kind of hotels were you in decided to, trying to leverage that point of interest. But this is a very manual work, right? And we live in a technology world, and this is why we're all here together. So the answer is upper funnel pre-booking data. So when we think about that guest journey, a lot of the hotels would slice and dice the data based on the PMS data. So whatever is already booked, they would then define that, group it, define business mix, and target that. But there's an entire honeymoon phase, right? When we think about booking our holidays, yes, we do look into flights, but before we look into flights, maybe we look into the destinations. And then after we look into flights, we look into destinations, we might look into package, or just book direct, or book through an OTA. Am I traveling with my dog? Am I traveling with my wife, with my family? And would I book direct or through a travel agency? And nowadays, everything gets tracked. So either you might be using, for example, the Global Market Insight dashboard, which OTA Insight provides for free, and happy to send the link afterwards for your own destination, where you can assess flight searches and hotel searches. You can see the main feeder markets for your destination live. And for example, Atomize is very clever on that, because they look into upper funnel pre-booking data from OTA Insight to actually adapt that demand and understand if there is a big shift because there was a concert that was confirmed or something is happening. But after you do that analysis, not based only on the guests that you already have, but who is looking for your property and you might be missing out. And this can be through like the Google PPC AdWords, this can be through the Market Insight, this can be through also your OTA reporting as well, and then leverage that with tactical promotions, right? If we think about revenue management, it's at the right room, at the right price, to the right candidate at the right time. And if we think about that, that's where data can help us. We can't look individually to each single guest, but as Michael, for example, mentioned, we can look into verticals. We can look into adapting that business mix. Dan spoke about leisure. So if there is an intent to travel for both business and leisure, why not try, for example, an extended length of stay promotion? So we make sure that we capture that. And also we need to think about a little bit of an invisible guest that came with the change of the customer journey and the customer pattern, which is short-term rental. But I know there is a question afterwards for that, so I'll be able to explore. But in the end, the answer is analyze the data, slice and dice it, and try to proactively tackle it through a tactical approach.
Great, Jorge, thank you. So we go back to data, and now it's not only like part of the journey itself, but we're looking even at before that, right? So that's very interesting. And so the next question has to do a bit with what we are talking right now, which is every hotel basically can make use of technology, right? So the future of hotels is undoubtedly driven by advancing technology. So Florian, maybe can you give us, or can you tell us, what are the best practices for using technology to streamline the whole guest and employee journey?
Yeah, thanks for that, John. And I think we heard it already a bit in the travel patterns from guests are changing. People are becoming much more flexible, much more last minute. And at the same time, hotels, hospitality businesses have the huge challenges that we do not have enough employees, staff to actually staff our operations. So how do we do that, right? Guests become more spontaneous and we have more difficulty to actually have enough people to plan. So this is where really technology can bridge this gap and enable hotels and hospitality businesses to be able to offer still a standardized and high quality journey for their guests, but which is not necessarily only driven by personal interaction, but which is really driven by a digital experience and digital communication. And I think we have some really great examples also together with BookBoost, for example, with the Lindemann hotels in Berlin, 4 properties here and one in the north of Germany. And they've implemented kind of new technology and new guest journey, because they said a lot of their guests arrive and then they stood in long check-in journeys. I mean, we all know that story about, you know, everybody arrives at the same time or everybody wants to check out at the same time, and then there's always that huge queue. So being able to digitize these processes was a big step, but actually also going a level further and being able to communicate the right check-in message and centralizing the right message at the right time, so that actually the adoption of the digital check-in goes up. Because it's not just about implementing an online check-in, for example, which will make the difference, but it's really meeting your guest where they are with the right message at that time. And I think these kind of topics, like I think Lindemann has over 60% of their check-ins which are actually moved digitally, so away from the kiosk, but actually even done digitally. These are the numbers which impact, of course, your business. At the same time, we of course have staff, and the people, the hotels need staff, and it's not about, hey, let's take it all out, but it's really about freeing their time up, being able to also get people from different industries into hospitality and make and enable their life to that they can actually connect with the guests. So making these staff processes really easy, the systems easy to use, and take out all of these manual processes. It's, for example, payment collection. You know, how many receptionist reservation teams are sitting there and sending out manually invoices per email to the guest, or actually have to collect the payment for a no-show. All of these kind of things, which nowadays you can really automate and standardize through digital and employee journeys, and be able to always offer the same level of service. If a guest arrives at 4 a.m. in the morning or at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, they are always able to access your property, get the right information on whatever channel they are, and be able to have an amazing kind of experience, both on the property as well as in the digital world.
I think that's a super interesting point that you were mentioning, that today is about balancing. I mean, it's not just about personal interactions, but also about providing a good digital experience, right? So people is not going to qualify the hotel just thinking about if someone said hi to me, but also about how well was the digital service and the whole digital experience. So that's definitely to consider. And yes, with Lindemann, actually, we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and they mentioned that because now they are able to basically automate the whole check-in process and the whole payment, then they actually have time to be host again, like to say hello and engage in other meaningful conversations instead of just repeating like the forms. And now you need to send me your passport and everything, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's also just think about, I mean, I don't have to preach this to the BookBoost team, of course, but to all of people who are maybe listening and not so familiar with that, but it's, if you just receive your emails, you know, like, hey, here's your pre-check-in, here's your booking confirmation, and you're at the hotel and you're like, okay, which email is now the right one? But if you receive just a WhatsApp message saying like, hey, you can go here, you know exactly where you got that. And these are the wow effects where you suddenly, oh, this digital experience has actually differentiated my property, my business, my brand, compared to all other hotels who are maybe also offering a digital experience. So I think it's all about going this extra mile and going again, and not just implementing digital for digital, but implementing it because the guest is at the center and looking at what does the guest need at what time.
Amazing.
It totally.
Go then.
Oh, I hear someone else. Oh, no, okay.
No, go then.
No, so no, but that just, I think it's a very, very interesting conversation, and you mentioned it's actually like adapting, right? And that's also what we're discussing today, like changes in behaviors how can you adapt to that? And also there, yeah, when you set up technology, you can always also look at what works and what doesn't, and that then enables you to improve again. And such an interesting conversation you had, Johanna and Florian, because when you are having such setup and you get that input, and for Lindemann, for example, indeed, like it's very interesting, the transition that they've gone through, that actually also then opens up resources again to then think about other things and build your business and think forward. And I believe that's such an interesting time we're living in now, where also we as tech providers, I believe, should take responsibility and be able to let our customers be agile and test and basically make it easy for our customers to try and get there, right? And it was just interesting that, like, in adapting to new behaviors, then in to some extent you're always prepared for what comes. Of course, with maybe a strange time to say that now, it's still sort of having COVID in the back of our minds, but for changing behaviors, you'll be able to adapt to that fast, and that's how you could use that really in your advantage today, I think.
Thank you, Dan.
Jorge, over to you.
Yes, Jorge, go ahead.
Just a quick note, but again, I think it's like a very hot topic, and again, everything goes around personalization, but giving the option to the client. And Florian and Dan touched that in a very good way. Let's for example, when we think about technology, operational technology nowadays, and for example, a lot of the 5-star hotels or the full service hotels or lifestyle hotels, that don't tend to go, for example, the possibility of self-check-in, or even having the possibility of self-check-in through a machine, just because they believe that might compromise service. Well, I would have a few clients that would challenge that, because in the end, give the option to the client. And we spoke about, different behaviors pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Before, I was always a people person. I would go to the check-in. I want to speak with the receptionist. I want to know everything about the hotel. Well, you should see me now, like logging in with my app and using, like, my app as like a key card to open directly my door, because I've stayed in that hotel probably 3 or 4 times. So I kind of already know. And the check-in, there's 10 people because there's only 2 receptionists, right? So is that the last level of service? Or actually is giving me exactly what I was needing, but giving me the option. I can still speak with the person, but I can do my online check-in and prepare everything in advance and go enjoy, the services in the hotel. And then we need to think about, revenue per available guest. We think about TrefBar. We think about, those ancillary services that if I'm not losing time on the check-in, maybe I'll grab a drink in the bar. And this is where technology can definitely help hotels, like operationally, without compromising service, but giving them the option and be personalized to each single one of us, right? Because I might be more tech savvy, and there are other people that still want to speak with the person.
You know what else, Jorge? I'm just on that as well. I love this topic too. I won't spend much more time, but for me, on a personal level, it's peace of mind, isn't it? Because I approach it the same way as I do my airline flight. I pick my seat digitally. I choose my meal. Everything is done. So by the time I arrive, all I have to do is drop my bag. I'm not thinking about anything else. And sometimes that's how I approach sometimes my hotel stay, where I have everything sorted on arrival. I go straight to my room. I use my app to get into the door. It makes things a lot easier. And I think that having the option to talk to people and have that personal experience, give people that option, because some people want to do that, and other people, a little bit more tech savvy, just want to get up to the room and take a nap,
Exactly. Great conversation. Michael, do not turn off your mic, because the next question comes to you. And just a reminder, we already have one question in the Q&A. We're going to answer it in a bit. But if you have more questions, just put them there. We're going to get to that as well. And we're going to have a poll soon, because we also want to know what our attendees think and what's on their mind. So let's go to the following question. So basically, if let's say when booking accommodation, people are also looking into more than just a room, right? We all know that. So Michael, what would you say are the main things that hotels can leverage when promoting their brand, that can help them to differentiate from competitors?
It's a good question. Everyone's selling rooms, right? So it is a case of what else can we do to acquire more guests? What else can we do to get people to book our hotel? One thing you can do is differentiate with events and activities. And even on a personal level, I can attest to this, that sometimes you're looking for live entertainment and socialization. So think about how spaces at your hotel can be used for fun activities, and maybe even partner with local artists or breweries for events, wine tasting, really get networked into local businesses and see how you can partner with them to have interesting things happening at your hotel that you can advertise and draw on some packages that you can be advertising and selling that is more than just the room. And we talked a little bit earlier on tailoring guest experiences. So when travelers go away for, as an example, like the holidays, typically they're expecting something a little bit more special. So make a statement and introduce a theme or a calendar of activities for the festive period, or just being in tune with the local events and tying in room and package prices and specials around things like that. And then you're going to have to offer some compelling packages. Recently we had a changing traveler report at SiteMinder where we found 54% of travelers want to receive information from hotels on packages and promotions. So consider extended stays, flexible booking arrangements, fun upsells like champagne or things like that on arrival. And certainly, of course, bearing in mind that some people flying in might want airline transfers, things like that, optimize your rates and your revenue. Peak periods are times when you expect an influx of new or non-typical guests. It's going to necessitate a change of your tactics with your pricing strategy. So plan how you're going to balance out your occupancy versus your profit, and see where that sweet spot is. And a lot of that's going to come back to the technology you're using at the hotel. Marco hit into some great things about data early on in these conversations, and having access to live real-time data that you can draw on to really help you price your rooms intelligently and make sure that you're staying competitive, but you're also getting the revenue you need to keep the lights on and keep the business happy. So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Great. Those are some great examples. I hope everyone is taking notes, because there you have like 10 examples of things they can be leveraging from. Okay, before moving to another question, we have a poll to see what our attendees are thinking, what's on their mind. Let's launch it. You're gonna see it in your screen, and please vote now. You can see it now. So what is your main concern for your hotel in 2023? So what is on your mind in this moment? So how to upsell more, how to make guests come back to the hotel, how to digitalize the guest experience, or how to drive more direct bookings? Let's see, let's give it one more minute since the numbers are moving. And then we can talk a bit about the results. Okay, so far, let's see how it goes. We have around 50% of people that is concerned about how to drive more direct bookings. That's an interesting percentage. That's more than half of the attendees. Okay, let's end the poll. So now you can see the results. Let's see. The main concern right now is how to drive more direct bookings. The second place is how to make your guests come back to your hotels. So turn those one-timers into returners. The third place goes to how to upsell more. And the final one is how to digitalize the guest experience. Okay, so very interesting, those results. Any comments on that from our panelists?
Yeah, I think that, you know, some of these are hand in hand. And a few people had hit on this a minute ago in that, you know, talking about how technology drives results and how data drives the results. And, you know, I think Florian was the one that had mentioned that a lot of hoteliers at the minute are short staffed. So you'll end up with a lot of them doing several tasks at once, as opposed to actually nurturing the guests and, you know, really paying attention to the guests, you know, maintaining the brand, making sure guests are happy. They're at the front desk or they're running reports and having to do a lot of stuff where, you know, they really want to be making the guests happy. And I think a lot of that, like the technology side of it, having technology in place that's doing a lot of the marketing for you intelligently, doing a lot of these tasks and things like that, will allow you to focus on your existing guests and turn them into repeat guests, saying, wow, the level of service I attained at this hotel, I definitely want to come back. I stay at the same hotel in Dubai every year that I go because of that, because they've got technology in place. They have a short number. They have, I won't tell everyone who this hotel is because it's my best kept secret type thing. But I mean, you know, it's a small hotel. I go every year. There's only about 5 or 6 people working there, but they've got modern technology in place that's allowing them to do a lot of the concierge service, a lot of the stuff that you can imagine. And they're talking to me the whole time I'm there. I'm standing there talking to a guy while he's getting reservations. He's upselling packages, doing all of that stuff. And I'm always so happy at the level of service that I get because they have things working for them in the background that's allowing them the time to pay attention to me. And I think a lot of hotels can learn from that.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting point as well. And also research backs that up actually, like, and also interesting to see the results of the poll. And I also think some of it is intertwined, because for increasing direct bookings, which by far had the majority, of course, this could be looked at one-timers, which is a different thing than returners. But when we look at returners, actually customer effort is also a very interesting element to look at, which basically tells that 94% who have had low effort interactions with a brand are likely to come back to that brand, whereas only 4% of customers who have had high effort interactions with the brand are likely to come back. So what that tells is, like, we are all got so used to our phone, right? And everything works so easily, like booking a taxi or such. Like, we got used to these kind of digital services. And when it's really easy to get what I want as a consumer, I'm more likely to want to get back there. And that then sort of relates again to the customer experience and looking at direct bookings can be zoomed in as one thing. But looking at that from a broader perspective will in turn, like, also increase direct bookings sustainably over the long term. But that of course is not for each property or for each hotel. When it's about one-timers, it's a different discussion. But that was quite interesting to see those results.
I can only agree to what Michael and Dan said in that case. Also, just to add that on top, is like what we have experienced, especially during the pandemic, and also now, is that there is a lot of education needed still, where you talk to a revenue manager or a reservations person, and believe it or not, there's still a lot of information not at hand. Like, where does your customer come from? Did you already analyze this? Do you have a modern tool in place to analyze where the business comes from? Like Jorge mentioned it already, a very good relationship with the OTA Insight, and the customers can make a lot out of the market insight tool, you know, the tool with the heat maps of where the business comes from. And that goes as deep as down to the competitive set and see, well, is there a current competitive set, a set that who said that this is your competitor? And are you aware of all the information where your customer usually books and where else do they book? So is this information at hand and available? And often, and believe it or not, it's not. So same like when you talk to a lot of beach resorts, companies with a lot of hotels, and let's say in Egypt, for example, you say, well, of course we try to optimize the leisure business, and the individual customer. But when you tell me about your business mix, so up to what extent is that happening? So how much is what's the business mix? And say, well, 80% more or less comes from FIT customers. Well, there's not that much what we can influence, or any revenue management system can influence then when you want to drive more direct bookings. But have you ever checked about the number of allocated rooms to this FIT allotment? So well, we cannot walk away from that because we always have to give them 80% of the occupancy, of the availability. Well, but the most likely just use 50%. Well, then you need to change something, and you need to give it a bit more space. Just at that point.
Great point. Yes, because then you need to look at the whole picture, right? So that's great that you are also looking into the data regarding that. And so just a comment for everyone that mentioned that you're worried about how to get more direct bookings. Go to our website, because we have a guide, a free guide about how to increase direct bookings and outcompete others in the long term. And you can just go download it and read all the tactics that we have there and how you can apply them. That was just a small moment. Let's continue. Okay, so let's go again. So we are talking now as well about reviews, and then we have a question about reviews. So let's go into that question first. So here it says, guest reviews and the impact on bookings. Most guests look at reviews, which is also data, and make decisions on bookings. What technologies, maybe using some form of AI, can be utilized to counteract poor ratings that are not deemed fair or accurate, and in turn affect your overall ratings? So here the person is talking about their hotel. They have a view to the sea, but they don't have TV, right? And then in the reviews, they said this, like, oh, they don't have a TV, but they offer the possibility to get away from it, from that whole environment. So the question is, how can they counteract that? Is there any tool that they can use to counteract these poor ratings? Do you guys, any of you want to jump in, take a bit of the question?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds, if I understand that correctly, it sounds that maybe there was an unrealistic expectation, you know, that the customer was expecting a television in a place where the actual selling point of this room was to disconnect. Really, all that the thing is people will leave what reviews they will leave. They will leave a positive, they will be a negative, because it's in their mind, it's in that mindset. But I find, you know, especially having worked in the travel and tourism industry now for a little while, I understand that, you know, sometimes it's good to at least have a response from a hotelier with regard, whether it's positive or negative. If you can at least see a response from the hotelier to say, you know, apologizing for that. You just say, look, I'm sorry that you felt that, you know, that you weren't able to have a television. The purpose of the room was for you to disconnect. And maybe even, I think the best would be to have a tool in place for, before that gets published, to have it go back to the hotelier to respond before it gets published, so that way at least he can try to remediate it privately with the guest. Because there may be an option in another room for next time. You can say, well, look, I'm happy to host you in this room at you know, for X, you know, where we do have a television, and I'm hoping that you really enjoyed the rest of your stay, or something like that. But as a traveler, I always look, even for the best reviews or the worst reviews, that there's at least a response from the hotel addressing the situation, and maybe even talking about how they might remediate it.
Great points. Okay, let's go to another question that we received. So this one says, digitalization is essential, just like using data. You all also mentioned it is important with a personalized approach. We all have our chatbot experiences. How do you think we can digitalize and still keep an authenticity?
I'm happy to answer or give my thought on that, and I think it's a great question. Also going back to the intent, which should people are looking for authenticity, right? So when I get, and again, especially also millennials and Gen Z, it's extra important that experiences feel authentic. They care more about that than products or. and they care about localization and all that. Like authenticity is what we're looking for. So it's a great question, and we should be careful that technology doesn't interfere with that. And that should also not be the intent. So especially, I think this question was regarding chatbot, which is kind of like a good example in that sense. It should be clear that it's a chatbot. The chatbot is there to help the customer to get what they need. It's not like sort of like I, as a consumer, expect that the chatbot is sort of like a replacement of a human, right? Because then I might feel like wanting to test that, like I'm gonna beat this chatbot. That sort of goes over the purpose of it. So the point I try to make is that it's very important to set the clear expectations and use technology in the right way. And when the customer understands that and understand they can use it in their advantage, it won't lead to frustration and it will still be authentic. So I think it's important to set the right expectations.
If I may also just add something on that, I think that's a very good points made, but I think it's also something which is important to note is that it's not just about implementing a chatbot, right? A chatbot also means that there's quite a lot of work in setting it up, making sure that the right questions are answered in the right way, that all of the content is there, that actually it's also kept up to date with the right information, that it's also integrated maybe with the rest of your flow. If it's maybe, for example, especially on the booking engine, on the website, that it directly integrates with your booking engine, as you can really see amazing results from people coming on your website. They are checking 5 other websites at the same time. They want to find one information or get one answer to one question. And there you can trigger that if you're able to answer that with the chatbot to really just get you into that booking funnel, or connect you then afterwards, like, hey, leave your email address and we'll answer to you by email with the right information. So suddenly you were able to capture a lead, which was normally gonna kind of jump onto the next website. But of course, there's nothing more frustrating than kind of asking questions to the chatbots and the chatbot giving you wrong information. We saw this as a challenge during COVID, when things were just like changing so rapidly that it was pretty impossible to always stay up to date. But I think that's important, is to really mark it as a chatbot and use it in the touch points where you want it, because it can drive more direct bookings, as well as really help your guests and getting instant information on kind of like the FAQs of your guests.
Yeah, 100%. And just off the back of that, sometimes, and like Don was saying, setting the expectation, this is a chat bot. This isn't a live person that you can actually have a discourse with on chat. But I think they're great. Personally, I think chat bots are great for these quick answers. And like you said, with FAQs, where are you located and what's the best route to get to you? Or do you guys offer this particular allergy-free, gluten-free menu or something like that? These little things, where if a chatbot can answer it quickly, you're actually much more appreciative than actually being stuck on a chat for a very long time. But like you say, there is nothing more frustrating than going around in circles with a chatbot that just isn't built to accommodate. I face that every day.
It's really important that it flows, like Florian was mentioning, right? It's not just about the chatbot, but it needs to integrate in a nice view. So we wanted to also talk about short-term rentals, because we know that this is more than a trend. I mean, it's rising and considerably, right? So hotels, they need to actually take some precaution, or how should they look at this? We want to ask Jorge a bit about how can this impact hoteliers and what they can do about it.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Certainly. So this is a very big theme here at OTA Insight, because as you know, like after the pandemic, a lot of the consumer behavior has changed. And even specifically, if we think about ourselves, our trips, we probably tend now to consider something different that we didn't consider before. Do we feel comfortable, us as a family, to go to an hotel that, for example, 700 bedrooms and a big breakfast room? And some people are a bit more conscious than others. And this definitely made an impact in that customer journey, in that consumer behavior. So At the moment, we did a bit of research because now we're integrating short-term rental and alternative lodging data into our solution, because imagine it as to be a little bit the invisible comparator. And same to what other panelists have already mentioned. How do we know that our comp set is correct, right? A lot of the times our comp set is defined by the feasibility study from the beginning of the hotel and has not changed for the past 10 years. But a lot of new hotels has changed, your business mix has changed, your client has changed. So if you think that 50% of the guests, when it comes to the discovery process, both look into hotels and short-term rental. This is the number one. So if 50%, if half of your guests are comparing your property with short-term rentals, shouldn't you also be considering as a possible comparator? The second one is a bit more relating to Europe. Europe drives the way with 6.5 million listings across the globe. So that's definitely a lot of listings and a lot of supply to be considered from a guest. And then the third one is, and I'm sure like if you stayed in alternative lodging recently, you probably noticed this industry is professionalizing. I've stayed in already in alternative lodging that have concierge, self-check-in. They, for example, have something very important in markets like UK, which is a pet-friendly policy, which was a lot of a decision factor for people to stay in that, but not in hotels. And we see the trend going to hotels. But also the parts that we found the most interesting is, can short-term rentals be the gatekeeper for, I wouldn't say crystal ball and futurology, but can they be a predictive demand indicator? And based on a study that we have done in 30 global destinations, we found something surprising, which is short-term rentals pick up average between 40 to 35 days before hotels do. And when we look into the curves of like, on the destinations that we've done, is beautiful because the short-term rentals pick up business, and then 14 to 35 days after, the hotels pick up the business, exactly the same line. So think about this as a consumer behavior, but also customer journey. I certainly do that myself. When I book an hotel, or when I book a flight, I tend to, if I'm looking to stay in a short-term rental, I tend to book it straight away. Why? Because in my mind, there's a lot less of them. So if I want to get the right property at the right price in the right location, I'm going to book straight away. But with hotels, and I'm the easiest prey for revenue management, where like, I get last minute to usually book because I just think there's a lot more supply. So when we look into this into a macroeconomical world, we notice that short-term rentals are a predictive demand tool for hotels as well. So if you can understand and if you can get access to that data, then you can adapt your strategy. Also, you make it relevant for yourself. Once again, personalization. We give you the opportunity within our tool to select price point, location, amenities, pricing behavior, if it's dynamic, if it's flexible, if it's an entire home, guest threshold. So by the time you slice and dice the data, you're guaranteed of one thing: exactly what you offer is exactly what that alternative lodging is offer. And over here, maybe for some destinations might not be significant, but when we think about seasonal destinations, when we think about like very touristic destinations, that is definitely a big comparator and something that hotels should be aware more than ever.
Great. Thank you, Jorge, for those insights. We have a very interesting question that is still missing to answer. And then I would like to ask Marco and Florian to answer this question. So it says, my question is, it is clear that technology does increase available time to do other tasks and to concentrate on other areas of the business, but technology is also very expensive to implement and to maintain. In terms of the current economic climate, is the recommendation to implement and use the technology as a solution something that could ultimately harm hotels if they are over-relied on?
I think it's a good question, right? And it also definitely makes sense that you're questioning that. And I think before every IT investment decisions or tech decision, you need to evaluate what tech do you want and what purpose are you trying to achieve with it. So just implementing tech for the sake of tech is definitely not the right approach. So how do you best approach the topic is looking at your own business. Where are your customers coming from? We spoke about all of this already. Is analyzing, okay, where do you stand in terms of your own systems and your own setup and your own processes? Where are you struggling? What are maybe repetitive tasks which are really hindering your teams to achieve their goals? What are the biggest topics in there? Is it operational topics? Is it distribution topics? Is it staff retention topics? All different elements, and being able to then prioritize what are the fields which you need to focus on, and then also looking at is actually a digital solution or the right systems the way to solve your pain and be able to bring in the solution, or is maybe a different, just a change of SOPs or things like that, the right way into that direction. And so I think that's the one big element first, is really being able to analyze your business, set a strategy, set a goal, and how to get there. And then the second part of it is also, who is actually going to implement this tool? Is your team open to do that? Are you the one, selecting the tool, implementing the tool, and people are just adopting it? Are people open for it? Are they reluctant? So again, even if it's the perfect tool for solving that one pain, but if your customers are not open for it, or your staff is not open for it, or yourself, you're not open for it, then it's also, again, no point of implementing that. But I also want to just add one point. It's also, when you implement technology and digital transformation, it's not just about implementing technology, it's also about transforming your business, being able to be open to actually think about, are the processes which I have today actually the right ones? Because a lot of processes in hotels have been created in a certain way because the systems dictated that to them a lot of years ago. Like, why do you have a check-in process how it is? It's because back in the day, the systems told you do it like that. Suddenly Airbnb and short-term rental and stuff allowed you to book online. Everything was being automated, and you chatted via the tool with hosts, and everybody was saying, wow, I have the most personal experience on Airbnb, even though you actually never really met anybody. And I think that's kind of also where you need to change your thought process as well for that transformational change.
Thank you, Florian. Marco, anything you want to add to this one?
I think Florian touched base on almost everything, so I completely agree with him. I mean, the most important is that you need to consider what do you want to achieve with investing in modern technologies. Of course, as Florian said, are you ready to do that? Or is it just because of a general manager just heard it when they met up with some other GMs and just sounds interesting to implement whatever systems, or you just want to have it, but your team is not ready to do that, or you're just questioning it because, well, speaking very openly, of course, you need to be ready to do that, and you will be conquered with a couple of questions. And of course, we could come to the point that we say, well, yeah, you're in the market since 25 years, yeah, and you have probably worked with all the different properties around you, and you know everything, and you know everything better. But you also need to be open to listen to those numbers, to the data that a system like whatever it is able to deliver to you. So, and yeah, of course, it costs. Yeah, of course, modern technology costs money. Yeah, but you should not always see it from a cost perspective. You also need to calculate a return of investment. And let's say with the revenue management system, for example, yeah, sometimes it is quite hard to calculate a return of investment. On the other side, it's quite easy. Yeah, it just depends on the numbers, what you want to expect. But yeah, you need to make sure that you have that vision, you understand for you need that system, and what will be your what will you gain by using such a system? Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Marco. Before we are in the last 5 minutes of the webinar, so before we close, we wanted to launch another poll, because we want to know a little bit more about our audience and what is stopping you from elevating your guest experience. If you think about all the factors that are there, what is stopping you? So please go ahead and vote.
Maybe talk about what it means to elevate the guest experience.
Yes. So what are we, that's a great point, Michael. So what do we mean by elevating your guest experience? By just creating a better guest experience, right? By just satisfying your guest and then providing excellent services, or maybe a bit more digital services. So we have different points when it comes to analyzing the guest experience, but overall, it's just getting this point of satisfaction to your guests, that they feel like, okay, it was a great decision to stay in that hotel. I had a great time. So let's see. We have some voters now. We can stop the poll and let's share the results. Some people vote for a choice 4, which means like another motive. Let's share the results. So the main thing is too many projects, no time to focus on that. So we understand that, like in hospitality, everything is happening, right? So this is like the first option. The second was no budget to use new solutions. Choice 4, meaning other motives that are not listed here. That was another one of the choices as well. And lack of knowledge of what to do. That's also one of the options. Okay, great. Thank you for participating. And now let's go to one last question. Basically, after talking about all these trends, and then it's a big challenge, basically, what we have ahead, right? It's a big challenge on how to accommodate and all that. So considering all these changes, once a customer has made a booking, what are the key things hospitality brands must consider to turn those visitors into loyal guests? Dan, can you tell us a bit about that?
Thank you, and I'll try to keep it short, being aware and respecting everyone's time. And I saw a question earlier from Kiran in the chat as well, which I think it relates to. But yeah, it's all about experiences, really. Like so, it's more than nurturing guests after checkout, right? With the newsletter on the birthday or stuff like that. Like when you can create an experience that people want to belong to, they will become more loyal. And also today, actually, values that a brand stand for a hotel has is becoming increasingly important. 82% mentions that they want to understand core values of a brand and see if that aligns with your own. And sustainability is becoming more and more important in that. So these are all things to bear in mind. Like customers are becoming more choice conscious, and loyalty, the new loyalty, is really about creating experiences and aligning with that. I would love to talk more, but I think I'll leave it with that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Dan, for sharing. And thank you, everyone, for joining. It's been 1 hour already, so we're not going to push it forward. So many questions that we had a chance to answer. Thank you to our great panelists for sharing your point of view. Great partners that we get a chance to work on and just build things together. So this won't be the first or the last webinar where we are together sharing. Thank you for joining, and thank you all of you that took some time to join us today as well.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.